been able to run sales teams, but everything about my life changed when I learned how to sell and maintain my integrity. I love this word integrity. It comes from the root word integer, which means to be whole, so that I could be myself. I could be whole in my job. I didn't have to be a salesperson, and then when I came home, I had to leave that and be a dad and a pastor. That I could be all of it. I could bring my self as a father, as a husband, as a pastor, and I could bring all of that into my sales job, and I could bring my sales job into everything else. And to me, that was a really big deal. And that was kind of this like light bulb moment. And so I love talking about this. Hey, everybody. Hope you're having a great day today, whenever you are watching. I'm going to go through, I realize I haven't done this yet. So I wrote this book, Sales Exegesis, which is available on Amazon, A Pastor's Journey into Packaging Sales. And I wanted to kind of go through the book and do an overview in a few different parts on some of the key components of the book. I know that not everyone's going to go out and buy a physical book, although I highly recommend reading physical books, and specifically reading books from people who have passed away. I'm still alive, but reading old books that have really stood the test of time, I think is important for learning, because if something has survived a long period of time, then there tends to be wisdom and value in it. Not all the time, but tends to be some wisdom and value. And what prompted me to not write the book, but what prompted me to kind of come on here and make call it like a series on my packaging show is a couple of things. Number one, I really love talking about this topic. I love it so much. And I love speaking to groups of people about it. I love training people on it, because I think that there's a lot of dignity that has been lost in sales. And I want for people to be able to recover that. There's a lot of people who have jobs in sales. And sales, marketing, business development, all of it has sort of been cobbled together a little bit. Not totally, but a lot of it has been. And so maybe I'll speak a little bit more generally about that. But this idea that salespeople have to be manipulative, have to lie, it has to be a miserable job, is false. It just is. I think there's a lot to be gained by a sales job. I know my life completely changed. The trajectory of my family completely shifted when I got my first job in sales. Really, it was with Peak Packaging Solutions. And then that would have been in 2010. And then I've had a few jobs since then. I've been able to run sales teams, but everything about my life changed when I learned how to sell and maintain my integrity. I love this word integrity. It comes from the root word integer, which means to be whole, so that I could be myself. I could be whole in my job. I didn't have to be a salesperson, and then when I came home, I had to leave that and be a dad and a pastor. That I could be all of it. I could bring my self as a father, as a husband, as a pastor, and I could bring all of that into my sales job, and I could bring my sales job into everything else. And to me, that was a really big deal. And that was kind of this like light bulb moment. And so I love talking about this. I've mentioned here on LinkedIn, if that's where you're watching this, or on Substack, that there's a lot of things I'm terrible at. I suck at a lot of stuff, specifically if it has to do with cars or construction or manly movies. I don't know. Come here. I've never seen Braveheart. Okay. All right. This is a safe space. There's a lot of things that I'm just not good at. One thing that I am good at that not a lot of people are comfortable doing is speaking in front of other people. I just love it. I have since I was when I went to college. Listen, I'm going to get into this here in a second. What are we, 5 minutes in? When I went to college at the Colorado State University, the Harvard of the Rockies, my very first semester, I signed up to take public speaking. It was me, like two other freshmen, and a whole bunch of seniors who had just put this off till their last year because they hated it. And I was like, this is the best. I was 18 years old, and I was able to give a talk as a senior in high school in front of a couple thousand people at my graduation. And that was this moment where I was like, this is something that I love to do. So I say all of that. If you need me to come in and talk to your group or do some kind of sales training, I'm limited in my time, but love to do it. So I've got a couple of things that I'll be doing. I'll be speaking at, if you're part of the packaging distribution and manufacturers show that's going to be in Florida in March. I'm going to be doing a keynote there. And I have another company I'm doing some training for. So I have probably 3, maybe 4 more opportunities because my time here in Salt Lake City with the Label King is the most important thing that I'm doing. But I just love to do this, and I don't want to lose sight of being able to do that, if that makes sense. Okay. So the first of the series is this idea of being rooted in truth. And I'm going to let you in on a little something about my life. I love listening to a good debate. I mean, I will listen to, if someone's having a debate on a topic that I think is interesting, I will listen to 2, 3, 4 hours of it, not at one time, but over time. I treat it like a podcast. And so I don't want to give air to one of the sides of this debate, but I couldn't even believe it was a debate. And it was within like the Christian circle. And it was 3.5 hours of a debate. I can't even, it was so ridiculous that it even had to be debated, but I couldn't believe that I was listening to this. And one side of this debate was completely rooted in emotional fear. Everything that it sounded like they were trying to be logical, but at the end of the day, everything was rooted in emotionally based fear, which is the opposite of what I write about in this book. So that is eisegesis, right? So what they had done is they had arrived at a conclusion. And like I said, it's such a ridiculous premise that you can hit me up, send me a DM if you want to know what it was, because I can't even say it out loud. It's so crazy that this was even being debated. And that one side actually believed that what they were saying was logical or sensical. And how they got there was that they had disconnected themselves from objective truth and fully connected in to emotionally driven eisegesis, which meant they had arrived at a conclusion in their brain. They have convinced tens of thousands of people, maybe even hundreds of thousands of people online, that their position is now tenable, which it is not. And it was frustrating to me. Now, that's really awful. But the thing is, we do this in sales constantly. We root ourselves in emotional fear rather than in objective truth. And when you start a process of discovery from a position of emotionally driven fear, and what this would look like is nobody's going to answer my call. Nobody wants to talk to me. We're not very good as a company. These are all subjective things. Nobody cares what I have to say. Why do we believe this stuff? Why are we driven by fear and timidity when that's not intrinsic to us? That has had to be taught. And a lot of this was very well meaning. I went through Sandler training, and David Sandler talks about this, that which I am not I'm not giving like a full-throated approval of Sandler training because I think they have some sorry Sandler trainers. I know that but I think there the training that I went through contained a lot of deceptive practices, which I would condemn strongly. But one thing that he talks about is when you're a kid, you're told don't talk to strangers, which makes sense for a kid. But that then forms in your psyche that you're not supposed to talk to strangers. And it's like, well, here's a list of 5,000 strangers and you need to talk to them. Well, how are you going to do that if you've been told to not talk to strangers your entire life? So some of this is just based in our upbringing. But at the end of the day, it's false. It's emotionally driven fear. And so you begin with this premise in mind that it's true. And then that's going to drive a lot of dangerous behaviors for a salesperson. And so the process of exegesis is the opposite of that. It starts with observable data at the front end. Not nobody wants to talk to me, not I can't make this call, not any in the blah blah blah, all of the stuff, all of the, again, going back to Sandler, like he calls it head trash or just like self-defeating talk. All of that goes out of the way because you don't start with it. You start with what is an observably true fact. And so in the book, I talk about this process. It can be a little bit boring for salespeople, but trust me, it's way better than the excitable, emotionally driven fear and these emotionally driven tactics that have driven so many people to negative outcomes in sales. And so what I start with first and foremost is positive self-talk that is rooted in truth. And so I'll say something like, I have been hired as a salesperson at this company. That's true. Someone believed enough in me. Someone is paying me today to sell things. That's true. They value me and think I can do this. That's true. I feel like, was it Stuart Smalley? I'm good enough. I'm smart enough. And gosh darn it, people like me. But you have to, you can root yourself in emotional truth if these are in fact true statements. So someone values you enough to pay you to do this job. That is true because you're getting a paycheck. If you're not getting a paycheck, then it's not true. And what are you doing now? And then next, you start down a path of writing down observable facts about the person and or company that you're going to be calling. And this is really boring, but it can drive so much rooted and grounded in truth discovery when you're going to start reaching out, that if you can capture these things into a CRM of some kind, then you don't have to keep coming back to them. So for example, if you're going to come up with company-based truths, so the company name is ABC Widget Company. This company is based in Salt Lake City, Utah. The company's address is this. The company's phone number is this. These are all facts. The company's website is this. On the company's website, they state sustainability goals for 2030 are, copy, paste. The current artwork is this, screenshot, paste for this product. This product is this, screenshot, paste. So you can go get probably 50, 75, or 100 pieces of objectively true data. And when you do that, you now begin a process of rooting yourself in truth rather than the opposite, which is, oh, their labels look like crap. That's not true. How do you know? What if they're intentionally, what if they wanted them to be that way, right? You can't say they look like crap. That's subjective. That's emotional. Their boxes aren't protecting the product because you see some dents. That's not true either. Maybe they already know it. Maybe the dent is actually proof that they did the job. Or the boxes are dented and so sales are bad. How do you know that? Their Pantone colors are off, and so I know that this is impacting that. You don't know that. You can say their colors are delta 3.6 off. You can have a tool to see that, and you can write that down, but you don't know what that means until you get a little bit further down the road. All right? So, good, rooting into the objectively true facts. You are valued by a business. They are paying you to do a job. That job is to go sell stuff. That's true. You can get a bunch of things written down about the company, or screenshot or photos or whatever it is. You can do all of that work. Limit yourself to maybe 30 to 60 minutes of doing this at a time, or else you could just get lost and come up with with irrelevant, objectively true facts. And then once you do that, you can then go into the next step, which I'll talk about here on what we're 15 minutes in. Which I'll talk about here in another episode, which is interpretive questions and then correlating the data. And so that's going to kind of be the next step. If you want to read the book, like I said, you can pick it up. It's like $10, I think, on Amazon, or it's like $5 on Kindle. It's not very long. You can see even the pages are, I mean, it's an easy, you could read it in a weekend pretty easily. So you can go pick this up. Hit me up if you want to hear about what the debate I was listening to, because it's so embarrassing. Like I said, that it was even a topic, and but it was two people on one side, which I would say is categorically the correct side of the debate that that I enjoy listening to, and I couldn't believe that they were debating this other person, and I'm glad they did. And so you can hit me up if you want to know what that was. But everyone, have a great day. Remember to root yourself in truth. That's not to say that you won't get emotional. We'll get into the emotions. We'll get into the subjective things. But when that is rooted and grounded in truth, you're going to have a hard time going astray from that. So thanks, everybody.